Good afternoon. I got that. We're recording. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Since this meeting comes in after Thanksgiving and before Christmas, I thought that we should look at a few things and talk about whether it's a turkey or a present. Now, I had to explain this to Deanna because a turkey in English is usually something that's not very good. It's it's um, it's considered a failure of sorts. So if someone says, uh, I just bought a turkey, if they're not talking about food for Thanksgiving or food for Christmas, then what they're talking about is things didn't go well. So um, that's the one side. Then the present on the other side is the pleasant surprises that come to us and give us opportunities and are beneficial to our lives. So with that, um, as I said, I was going to do, and this being our final presentation of the year, I'll probably retire this thought for the year. But I just feel that it's keenly important for us to stay aware and focused that if organizational leaders are merely consistent, they risk rigidity. And in changing environments, they can struggle to adapt. They may cling to old habits and practices until these practices become counterproductive, distracting them from more important new work that needs to be done. But just as consistency can become rigidity, agility can become a lack of focus when it isn't tempered by consistency. It's in the combination of consistency and agility that leaders become strategic. And as we start thinking about and moving toward strategic goals in our own lives, we need to understand we need to have that consistency and we need to be agile at the same time so that we stay goal focused, working in the direction that we need to work, but at the same time, maybe changing our tactics from time to time to take advantage of new situations. So I'll give you a COVID update. COVID has not taken off, which is great news. But at the same time, it's still out there and it's still impacting. It's low grade compared to where we were last year, the year before that, the year before that. So it's out there and it's still an issue, but it's not tearing up the real estate and changing the financial aspects of the world. Uh, in the US, I thought the numbers were interesting. In the US, there have been 103 million confirmed cases. Now, the population of the US, depending on which survey or which census information you use, is somewhere around 329 million people. So almost 30% of the people in the United States have had cases if it was only one. Some people have had it multiple times, so there's probably a slightly lower number. You know, but 2/3 of us have managed to avoid getting COVID. Out of that, 1.1, almost 1.14 million deaths that were attributed to COVID. Globally, there have been 772 million people impacted. We know that that number is low because of the reporting, the problem getting reporting, the problem getting people to go and say, I got this problem and it could be COVID. In many places in the world, they don't have that ability. And so we can make a rash assumption that many more than the 772 million actually infected, but confirmed was 772 million. And out of that, there were 7 million deaths. So um, it it upset a lot of things. It frightened a lot of people, and it was more in that aspect that it had a huge impact. Um, the, the we proved to ourselves that our systems are weak in some regard, and we've worked to strengthen them. But that's just one way that we've been impacted. It's changed the way we do things. The fact that we're doing this meeting on Zoom came out of COVID. So it wasn't without its upside. It got us to a point where we had to become familiar with a relatively new technology and get used to dealing with it. And most of us have. So where are we in the world? One of the things that I have been tracking, I'm I grew up working for companies that were involved with the auto industry, and so I sort of watched the auto industry as a bellwether. It's a huge driver of our economy and the worldwide economy at this point. And one of the things that's been going on is the whole concept of autonomous vehicles. Um, Autonomous vehicles are vehicles that have the capability of driving themselves. So, you know, you can stand on the sidewalk and you can click a little thing in your pocket and your car will start up wherever it is. It'll back out of the parking space. It will exit the parking garage and it will drive up in front of you, stop, and you don't have to get in the driver's seat. You can get in the back seat or you can get in the passenger seat and off you go. And you tell it where you want to go. You click it in on your phone, give it a Google map, and off it goes. And so this is really cool technology, and it's been hyped a lot. Tesla uh, is has run into some bumps in the road because uh, they do not claim to have an autonomous vehicle, but they have a self-driving vehicle. And some people have put that to the test unsuccessfully. Uh, but the autonomous vehicles, the promise that the companies made is that they're safe. Um, they're out there. They're perfectly safe. They're going to operate on U.S. highways. It's not a problem. They'll be able to do it without, having accidents, without going off the road, all of that kind of stuff. And they will reduce the cost by replacing the driver of a car with a computer and multiple cameras. So we can get taxis, we can get trucks, we can get our own chauffeur to drive us wherever we want to go. We don't have to worry about it. We can sit in a seat and we can either watch the scenery, look at the other cars going by, or we can eat lunch or do work on our laptops. So that's what they promised. So where are we today? Well, Waymo was one of the first companies out with autonomous vehicles, and they were going great guns. But in the last year and a half, they've slowed down, and they've sort of reduced their anticipated rollout. So currently, they have some vehicles operating in the San Francisco Bay Area and in Phoenix, Arizona. Uh, their website says that they have plans to extend into Los Angeles and into Austin, Texas, but those plans don't have a firm date, which says, yeah, I've got a plan and I'm going to go to the moon, but I don't have a date yet, but I'm working on that. So are they really working on it, or is that just something put out there for investors. Cruise was put together by General Motors, and they pushed it forward. They had cruise taxis in several places, but currently they're paused in all markets. They had a significant number of accidents, and some included more than one cruise taxi. So it's kind of hard when your own cars are crashing into one another. It's a little difficult then to sell the public on yeah, this is a safe way to get around town. Uber AGT, Uber got into, Uber and Lyft both got into it because they said this is cool. We can run autonomous vehicles and have people out there riding in them, and we don't have to pay. The driver doesn't have to be paid. They're available 24 hours a day. This is golden for us. But they've sold their automated guided vehicles to Aurora Driver. And they're currently testing vehicles in 3 potential markets. Aurora is testing vehicles, but they're not ready to roll out yet. They're still testing. Lyft Level 5 was Lyft's step into autonomous vehicles, and their website now, when you go to it, takes you to an ad for driver employment. So I have a feeling that this has been put on the shelf. So it's not really working. The goal here was to have autonomous vehicles that would work in large cities, so that drivers wouldn't have to be paid sitting still in traffic jams, that kind of thing. And they would be available 24 hours a day, and people could just call them up on their phones and have them drive to wherever they were, pick them up, and take them wherever they were going. And that's not it's not happening the way they expected it to. So what about trucks? Because we talked in Apex for lunch a couple of years ago about trucks and using autonomous vehicles in trucking lanes. The leader in this area is a company called Too Simple, and their trucks come with a team of drivers to take over in case. So what they've done is they enable a semi, and they get it all set up, but then they have a team of drivers that actually are there. The computer drives and does all of that, and the drivers are there to oversee what's going on and to make corrections as necessary. They're very good at driving on the interstate. They do very well on the interstate, but they have some issues when they get off the interstate, when they're trying to get through traffic and that kind of thing, which is difficult for humans as well. But trucks seem to be having a problem there. Right now, Too Simple is looking for more capital to keep them afloat. They have not seen a lot of purchasing, and so they don't have good cash flow. And if you've been through our training classes, then you know cash flow will keep you in the game for quite some time, even if you're not profitable. But that's where they sit at this point. Plus AI is building driving systems for other truck makers, but they're piloting in Germany. They've got a contract with the German automaker, and they're working with them to build up the equipment and everything necessary, and then the automaker is actually going to pilot the program. And then Embark Trucks is building the software technology to drive trucks on the interstate highway system. And they've sort of, they weren't really listening to me, but what their approach is what I just mentioned a minute ago. They have their autonomous vehicles, and those autonomous vehicles stay on the interstate, and they have parking areas outside various cities where the autonomous truck can go and pull in and stop, and then their local drivers at that point come and get in the truck and drive it from that point to its final destination. Then the drivers will drive it out of the destination when it's going back on the road, take it back to that parking area and park it, and then the truck will go back to autonomous mode. Now, this is very limited, but they're doing it. They've got several different points that they've been using, but as I say, it's pretty limited. Now, there are groups working on some other projects here in Texas. There's one group that's doing autonomous trucking. They still have a rider in the truck that can jump in case anything goes wrong. But they've established a lot of road miles with no accidents, with no problem. And they're driving a fixed route from Houston to Dallas, and then return from Dallas to Houston. And they're doing it outside the city limits so that they're not running into heavy traffic. And it's been relatively successful from that perspective. Now, there's legislation in place in Texas to build a special lane on I-35. I-35 goes basically from the U.S.-Mexico border down in probably down in Brownsville, that area, all the way up, and then it goes all the way up to the Great Lakes. But they're only driving, what they're talking about is putting in a specific lane just for autonomous vehicles to drive on I-35. Now, once that lane is put in, there'll be more access for autonomous vehicles. The question is, will there be more autonomous vehicles that will use that lane? So it's still up in the air. So that led me to the question, well, we have automated guided vehicles in manufacturing in a lot of plants and warehouses. We have a lot of AGVs. So what is it, why is it they work well in a warehouse or in a manufacturing plant, but they don't work well on the highway? And I think there are two things here that people sort of, because that's where people got the idea, if we can do this, automated guided vehicle thing, we should be able to do an autonomous vehicle. All we need to do is be able to give it sight and teach it to react. Well, the key is that the guided vehicles are guided. They follow a path, and they can't go anywhere but that path. And so the only real input they need is start and stop. And they can start and go, and then if you step in front of them, they'll let you know that they're there, and they'll ask you to move. And when they sense that you've moved, then they'll go forward. And when they first started, people were getting hit by the AGVs. They finally worked out those bugs. But now we understand how it works, and we understand how to work around them so that we don't stack stuff on the AGV track, and we don't stand on it waiting for the vehicle to come and run us over. that usage and what we do with them in our manufacturing spaces and warehouse spaces is so much simpler than pulling a 53-foot van with 45,000 pounds of material in it at 75 miles an hour, when you've got people who are driving erratically, who are falling asleep at the wheel, who are busy doing, texting or whatever they're doing, and the trucks have a problem dealing with that. And then getting into small places and working through heavy traffic is really difficult for a tractor trailer. And even though you automate it and say it's autonomous, it's extremely difficult for human drivers to drive those in those conditions. So this is going to take more work. So it's a turkey. It's out there. It's got some benefits, but it's not ready for prime time. Now, I just became aware recently that there is a problem with the exam prep quizzes. If you are studying for CPIM, CSCP, CLTD, CTSC, and you use the online learning system, there are some issues. The certification training materials, the books, the classes, and the online learning system all work together as to become our method of getting people ready to take the certification exam and pass the certification exam. So we have the books, we have the classes, and we have the online learning system. And the online learning system has a pretest and study materials with quizzes and practice exams. Now, all of that material is what you pay for when you register to take a class, or if you just want to study on your own, you can order and buy the materials and you can get it. But there's an issue. The source materials, the books and the study materials, they're derived by professionals from those resource materials. And they list the citations so that if they make a statement in the study materials, they'll tell you, you can go to this book on this page, and that's where you'll find more information about this subject. So it's all got citations, it's all been researched, and it's been done by professionals. The certification exams are composed of questions from practitioners. If you are certified, you can participate in an exam, a question writing workshop where you go in and you'll create questions for areas that are covered in the job skills surveys. APICS, ASCM does a job skills survey on a regular basis to find out what skills, what things are needed by the customers, by the companies, by your employers. What skills do they want? And so that's where the certification exams come in, because we look at the materials that we have in the books and the study materials, and from there we extract the things that meet the requirements of the job skills survey, so that we know that if you pass the certification exam, you're going to have the skills that employers want. And so this is all done, again, by practitioners, and they're vetted, they're rewritten by the practitioners, and then they're handed over to the testing company, and the testing company researches and rewrites them and then tests them in exams before they're counted in the results. So if you go and take a certification exam, it's 165 questions, and you may have 10 or 15 of those questions that won't count positively for you or negatively for you. They're just there. They're trying to get to what we call a cut score for that question and see if it's a good question. And so this is all part of putting together that material. The problem comes with the quiz material. The questions and the answers are solicited from volunteers, and then they're grouped and coded by the areas that are covered, so that when you're taking a quiz in the online system, you'll go through a section, you'll read that section, and then you take a quiz. And I had supposed, and I think I had heard, that that quiz was based on questions that were related to that particular section. That's not necessarily the case. The system chooses randomly within the group as the students take the quiz for each section of the material. So as you're sitting there doing the quiz, because all the quiz is doing is supposed to be testing your knowledge on the material that you just read and that you've been studying. And the other issue is they're not edited and they're not verified. So there's no high degree of scrutiny, or there has not been a high degree of scrutiny on the quiz material. So what happened was a number of people took the quizzes and found that there were errors in what the quiz was saying. You'd answer a question, the right answer was yes. You put in no, and you'd get credit for it. Or conversely, the right answer was yes, and you put in yes, and it said it was wrong. So it's not working real well. And the problem here is there's been no scrutiny on this, and there's no, there was no, since it's just internal to the study materials, there wasn't a lot of emphasis placed on quality assurance in this area, and so that's not worked out well. A couple of instructors learned that there were errors in the quiz question answers. So then they figured out, they went out and got the information on how that process works and how it's not edited and it's not maintained. And now they have created spreadsheets of all the questions by study session and the correct answers and the number of errors in the quizzes. And they provided that material back to ASCM and to Holmes so that they can get the system fixed. And your quiz results. Now, the quiz results have nothing to do with certification. It's not impacting that at all. It's just you take the quiz and you think, wow, I really, I just killed that. And it comes back and says, no, you only had 63%. Well, how did that happen? And so what they had to do is they had to do screenshots of every single question, every single answer, and then figure out if it was right or wrong. So a lot of work has gone into this already, and I'm sure that we'll hear more about it. And I'm sure that the quality of the quizzes will improve. But still, it's not quite ready for prime time. So it's a turkey. And that brings us to the U.S. economy. And depending, a lot of people depend on politics, and they look at it politically. But looking at it just economically, the third quarter of this year ran at a 4.9% growth of GDP, gross domestic product. That's everything we make in the country. And every country has a number, however many billions of dollar or euro or pesos or whatever, they publish what their gross domestic product has been. The growth was led by consumer spending and continued growth in exports and manufacturing. So we're adding more manufacturing capacity and capability in the U.S. economy. We're exporting more material to other countries. A lot of that may have been military. The military is moving a lot of stuff out of the country to the war in Europe, and so that could have had some effect, but it's growing, and at the same time, we've seen a reduction in inflation. So, U.S. economy is getting better. It grew at North America's economy grew at a slightly lower rate, but it grew substantially in the first 3 quarters of the year. So if this fourth quarter continues, and it looks like it has, this is going to be a good year economically. So that's a present. Finally, whew, glad you got to that, Chet. And then there's this UTEP. I'm not sure if any of you read this or heard about it on TV, but UTEP was ranked 27th in the US for value of education. That's for all the colleges and universities in the United States. They ranked 27th for the value of education. Number one in the state of Texas, ahead of UT, ahead of UTSA, all the other UTs, ahead of all the other colleges, all the other universities in the state. UTEP was number one. Number six, they were number six in all colleges and universities in the southern half of the country. So if you draw a line from Virginia over to, say, the north border of California, where it meets with Oregon, from there south, that includes all of the California colleges and universities, Arizona, New Mexico, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, all of those places. UTEP was number six in all of those. It says that the other 21 are in the Northeast or in the Northwest. Now, the ranking here was based on cost and academic strength and rigor. Academic strength by the strength of the professorial staff and the range of courses that were given, and how successful the students were coming out of the university, finding jobs and flourishing in those jobs. And that's how UTEP got to be 27th in the US. So that is definitely a big present. Now, there's one other thing that I would like to mention. We have a brand new CPIM, and it is our own Deanna Bailon. Congratulations, Deanna.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So,
we were only, sorry for the interruption. We were a group. There are still like 6 students that are in the process to get the exam. And we published some of them that they already passed the exam. And we are so happy to get this goal. Thank you, Chet. Thank you.
No, congratulations. It's a great step forward. So congratulations to you, another big present. So we didn't get the questions this month, but if you would send whatever questions you have, and then in January we'll go after your questions. And yes, I took the CTSC certification. I took the test. Pablo and Omar and Eva and I all did this. We were part of the beta test group to set standard for the exam. And now they'll be collecting data into the end of February, and then they'll decide what the scoring of the exam is, and then we'll find out whether we passed or not. So you think it's bad from if you've taken a certification exam, you stop the exam, and then you've got that time between it stops, and you get all the way out to the front desk and they hand you the sheet and you look to see whether you passed or failed. Imagine doing that, and now we have to wait 3 months. Anyway, good luck to all of you. Have a great holiday and stay well. And we'll get back here together in January, and we'll see what we can do about getting more involved in what's going on in the world of logistics and transportation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. You do the same.
You.
Thank you. Enjoy the holidays.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. Thank you.